Okay, class, you guys can hear me? Got your headsets on. Step 1, look at your screens. Oh, sorry, you can't hear me. Alright. Okay, guys, look at your screens. As we speak, I'm actually recording this for later, so if you have a problem, you can watch this video. So here's what I did with the last class, is we took a green and a red cube, and we just put them together and started making this piece here. And we used the most basic connections that we can make in this class. So we started by making these two objects and saving them. If you make an object and do not save it, it will not be able to be used later because it technically doesn't exist until it's saved. So I'm going to show you how to open this assembly area, which is basically the workbench. If you look down here, I've been working all day on stuff. So I've got, here's an assembly, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, and here's the original cube 2 and the original cube 1. I'm going to open a brand new assembly area. Go to the upper left hand corner and we'll go to the new tab. We'll drop down the menu, and instead of choosing part, you're going to choose the assembly area. And if you take a look at the picture, an assembly has 3 cubes connected together, and a part is only a single cube. So we got to make sure that you just look at the picture. It kind of tells you what to do. So let's choose assembly, and now I have an empty workbench. There's nothing at all in there. So I need to do what a human would do, which is place objects within the workbench. So this area here called place is important. This is where you will find the work that you've created. Now there is a drop-down menu, and inside of there are some interesting things. For instance, this is one we can use later, place from content center. Inside of there is essentially the entire store Menards and the entire store Ace Hardware. Anything you can buy at Ace Hardware exists in there, like nuts, bolts, washers, and things. Why make them if they could be bought off the shelf? So everything in here can be actually placed in your object, in your workbench. But I'm going to go and find something I made. So I choose the place option, and the first thing the computer is asking for is please tell me where it lives. So wherever you've saved it, you need to go to look in and drop. In my case, I went to the desktop, and I'll scroll down to my 2 cubes here. So I'm going to click on cube 1 and click open, because that's the first one I'm going to put on the board. Now it's hard to tell, but I'm zoomed really close, so I'm going to zoom back and click 1 time. Now there's my first cube. Now notice I'll zoom out again and I still have a cube attached. Every time you click, you get another cube. So how many cubes? I don't know. Let's add some. There we go. Now this thing is still stuck on my cursor, so you can either use the escape key or right click and just say OK. Alright, let's get some more stuff. Let's place the other cube. Now you can see I have a roller rest bracket here. I could bring that in here too if I wanted, but I don't. I'm just doing cubes for today. So let's add some cubes. You can put them anywhere. You could put it right on top of itself, which is illogical and doesn't make sense. It allows you to do goofy stuff like that right now because these things technically are not a real thing yet. So I'm going to hit escape this time. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this green block and this red block, and let's take a look at our navigation cube. When I talk about the top or the front or the right side of the block, I'm talking about the block just like that. So let's talk about the tops. I'm going to take the green top. I'm going to flip this cube over and put it right on top. So I'm going to take this flip it over and put it on top of there. Now that's going to lock the 2 faces together, but remember, only in plane, meaning a plane is like a flat piece of glass. It's only going to lock them together flat to flat, but it'll still slide like I did with the boxes. The tool we're going to use for that is a tool you're going to use all the time. It's called the constraint tool. Constrain means to lock down. Remember, the objects have full rotation now, so we want to lock them down in relationship to each other. So I'm going to choose the constraint tool, and we'll talk about what kind of buttons we have here. The first type is the mate connection, which allows me to connect faces and edges together. It's a real common connection. The next one is using faces and edges, but having an angle included. The next one is tangent, which when Mr. Anderson was holding that toilet paper roll, you could see that has a curved edge, and if that was set flat on the table, that would be a tangent connection. Mr. Anderson is demoing there. All right, he's holding up a tangent connection, which is essentially a cylinder up against a flat plane. And that happens in real life. And then we have the insert tool next. The insert tool is designed to put things that are fasteners into machines. A fastener could be a rivet, it could be a nail, it could be a screw, it could be a bolt. But those things we know do not move, so they're not like an axle that has rotation. It just saves you a step. It's like, hey, this thing is stuck in there, and you can use that. We will use that later in our designs, or in our work. Next, we have the two solution options. Now, this is where I have to remind you that computers, A, are not smart, and B, they don't have ESP. So you're going to have to tell this computer that I want two faces to connect, but do I want them first? The first solution is called a mate, and that's face-to-face. And the second solution is called a flush, which is the faces are not touching, but they are lined up. If you can see, these two are different than each other, and it'll make more sense as we work with it. I'm going to start with everything just the way it is, with the mate type and the solution also at mate. I'm going to select the top of the green block, and then I'm going to select the corresponding top of the red block, and the green block will flip over and they will become a face-to-face mate. Alright, now it did make a little clicky noise there, just for your enjoyment, and now I'm going to click apply and cancel that option. It already did. If you don't click apply, by the way, it wouldn't have happened. Now I'm going to take this green block and click and touch it. Look, these two blocks are stuck together face to face, but they slide around on each other's faces because I didn't say anything about that. This thing will even go way off to the side. But if it's a little bit of an optical illusion, if I look from the front, you'll see that I am definitely stuck face to face. You guys see that? Okay, now let's go back and let's now use the other option, which is flush. Keep the same mate type and choose flush. Now I'm going to take this option and tell this face to be flush with this face. Does that make sense? Just like you'd stack it on a table. Now those two are lined up. I'm going to click apply. Okay, now I'm going to cancel this just so I can move my object, and now I can see that yes, it is still face-to-face, it's stuck face-to-face, but I've flushed together these two faces, so it's not allowed to move in that dimension either. Both blocks are stuck together. Do you notice in my list here, I have a colored object? That's because when you click on an object, it will show you where it lives in the list. And just like before, it's incredibly important to understand why the list is important, and this sort of goes back to our parent-child relationship talk. Now, if I choose this green cube and it shows up in the list, I can open the plus inside the cube because I can then see the connections that I've made. When I told it to go face-to-face, that's called mate 1. You can see it highlighting on the drawing. I also added a flush as well. Those two make the block do what it does. If I had a problem and I needed to delete one of these, you could right-click on this word flush and delete it. The only place to delete a constraint is from the list, okay? You can't do it from the drawing. Now, let me make a mistake. I want this object to line up like that. I can't do it by hand. I have to do it with my tools. But I can move it to a spot where it's supposed to live. Now, it should be technically impossible for me to take this face and touch the top. So if I took the right face, I'm going to try to snap it to the top of the red. And because of my other constraint rules, it should tell me it's illogical and can't happen. So I should not be able to tell this face to touch this face, because the block will have to rotate, and the computer says you can't do that, because technically it's like telling someone to go left and right at the same time, or keep your feet on the ground and jump as high as you can. It just can't. It's just an impossibility. So you got to realize that if you have a problem like that and you get this warning, you need to find the block. In this case, I can click on the red one and open the plus. Now notice that these two blocks share the same stuff. And if I go up to a block up here and click on it, which is this one down here, and I open it up, it has nothing in it because I haven't done anything with this one yet. or any of the other ones. Let's flush up now these two faces. I usually push the objects apart to make it easier to select. Constrain, choose your flush option again. It almost always chooses mate by default, which means automatically. Choose that face and this face. Apply that and cancel. Now I've got my first chunk. Okay, why is that sticking together? Let's take a look. I told those two faces, those faces to be flush, and these to be flush. So with those three rules, it's stuck. Okay, let's go ahead and take and add another green down below. Let's use edges this time. Edges are nice. Constrain. This time I'm going to take this edge and attach it to this edge. Now it looks pretty good, but watch what happens when I try to move it. Not only does it slide up and down, but you see how it hinges on that edge? It's sort of like it's like a hinge pin, so it twists around. I don't mind that edge is connected, but I also want to connect a couple other edges. Let's take this long edge and connect it to this edge here, connecting the green together, green and red. So I'm going to choose this edge and tell it to be in line and snapped to this edge. And what that's done is, I'm going to apply and cancel. Let's choose this guy. Open it up in the list. You can see I've added that mate and that mate. Those are those two blue lines you see there. And those two actually locked it down as well, because if it's lined up with this edge and lined up with this edge, it can't move. So that's kind of a shortcut to do that. Let's add our next one in here. Let's go face to face to start, just to mix it up. I'm going to choose this face attached to this face. Apply, cancel. But look, if I look at it from the front, it's in there, but it's stuck like that, right? So let's take this edge and touch this edge. Constrain, edge to edge. So in this case I have an edge and a face together, but it did the same thing. Let's choose it, open it up in my list to find out what happened there. That face and this, it's hard to see when it's blue, that face and this edge together make that work. Okay? So your goal is to basically put 6 of these together in a pattern like that, and when you grab it, it should not move. So if that moves, let's add another connection. Constrain, edge, edge. Apply, cancel. Grab it, nothing should move. Every one of these objects, when I click and grab, should be by itself. A lot of times I come over and I'll see something that looks kind of like it should work. Like a block is sort of connected together, sort of like this. And then I come over and I say, oh, let's see if it works. Oh, no, that's not working at all. Make sure it's actually connected, okay? Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left today, but I'm going to have you play with this for the remainder of the period, and we're going to experiment more tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to give this back to you guys.